again to this session, and I want us to continue from what you were talking about, the membrane structure of a cell. So we looked at the phospholipid bilayer of the cell, and we saw very clearly that this particular phospholipid bilayer of a cell, it has got two molecules in it. Phospholipid bilayer had got two molecules. We have got the phosphate molecule and the lipids that are combined together, and we saw how they were behaving. The phosphate molecule was becoming polar, and therefore it can easily dissolve in water, and then the lipid was insoluble, so it was not water liking. And we saw that if any case it was in the surrounded by on a surface of water, like we were drawing the other time, it was forming for us a monolayer on the surface of the water, like the molecule will be existing in this particular nature. Now this one was when water is coming from one direction, that is, it is surrounding it on one end. This is what we could see, and this is what we are calling the monolayer that was being formed. And this one was the hydrophobic, the water hating, then hydrophilic, water liking end. Now we realize that this particular molecule can be surrounded with water in all direction. Like if any case it is surrounded by water in all direction, what is the picture of what we should be seeing? So by that we will realize that the hydrophobic layer will be collecting itself at one end so that it forms something like a micelle. So we have got it starts behaving in this manner. So we can have it forming this layer. It surrounds it, and then they are coming at the center here, so that it's like they are running away from water, like we can see here. So this is the part that we are seeing here. This surrounding here is our hydrophobic layer. And then this other end here becomes the hydrophilic layer, the part that is liking water, and then this is the water hating. So at this point it is not forming a monolayer like we were seeing it on the other side, but here we are having the micelle layer, the micelles layer that is being formed in this particular point. So this happens when water is surrounding it in all directions. So we say water surrounds it. Water surrounds it in all direction. So this is what is going to be forming for us. So this is the picture of how this particular phospholipid layer is behaving with water in every direction. So that is what I want us to see in this particular structure. So that is how one part of the membranes looks like in our transport nature that we are talking about. Now I want us to talk about the fluid mosaic and see how it behaves with the different fluids, because we can have different solutions that are going to pass through the membrane. Like we have said, one of the functions of the membrane that we have in the past that we have seen is the membrane will be regulating what is passing in across it. So the membrane has got some pores, it is porous, so it can allow molecules to get in, and some molecules cannot also get in. So how is this? So for us to understand this, we have to talk about what we are calling the fluid mosaic model. That one will help us to understand how this happens in the membrane of the cell as we continue to know the other bit of the membrane. So let us have a look at that, what we are referring to as the fluid mosaic. And the fluid mosaic model. Of the cell membrane. This is what I want us to understand very clearly. Now, the first thing that I would like to show to you is that we have known that the cell membrane has got various molecules that make it. We have talked about lipids, we have talked about phosphorus, but I want you to know that there is the third molecule that is making up the cell membrane, what we are calling the protein. Now, these proteins, we have got various nature of protein. Like, for example, if I may draw it for you here so that you can see what I am referring to, I can have, this is my phospholipid layer connected to another phospholipid layer like this. And then I can have another molecule here, our phospholipid layer, so that we indicate how the cell looks like, the cell membrane that is. And then I can have a protein here. This is a layer of protein, and then I can also have another layer of protein here. So you can see I have got another new thing. Now, not all lipids are the same. We have got what is called cholesterol can also exist as an example of the lipids. So if I draw it for you here so that we can also talk about it. So this one here, these molecules here, we are calling it cholesterol. For example, we call it cholesterol. We can talk about that. Now this one here, I can continue with the drawing of the membrane. I can have another protein layer here. This is a protein layer. I can have my molecules of this nature. So this is what I'm talking about. And we can see how these particular molecules will be helping us to move substances across the membrane here. So I can have this one here. I talked about this one as being cholesterol. I can have a protein, another protein layer here. Can have another protein layer here. Yes. And then I can have my last protein molecule here. This is my last protein molecule. And in this case, this protein can have a tail that is connected to it. So I want us to separate each of these molecules with their identity so that we can clearly see what the work they will be doing for us. Now, these ones at the end here, I'm going to call them peripheral protein. That is the proteins towards the end of the membrane that we are referring to, that we are talking about. So this is also peripheral protein. And then this particular protein here is at the periphery, but we are calling it glycoprotein. Now, why do you call it glycoprotein? It is a protein that has got carbohydrate tail. Like, for example, this one here is called carbohydrate. And I want that one to be very clear. I have said that these are peripheral proteins towards the end of the membrane. And then this is also a protein at the periphery, but it has got a name called glycoprotein. Simply means that it has got one amino acid end, and then the other end is a carbohydrate end. So it is a mixture of the two. See, it exists in the cell membrane. So those are examples. These ones here are the cholesterol, and there is a reason why I'm bringing in the cholesterol, because this is also a type of lipid that exists here, and how it is going to affect the working of this particular membrane we have to talk about. And then I also have got what we are calling, these are also still my protein here, and these proteins are called integral protein. Now, what is the work of each and every molecule here? Now, these particular proteins, they can allow ions to come in, because it is not only water that is going to pass in these particular molecules. We also have got some material that the cell needs for the cellular respiration, like we have talked about them, like the molecules, the ions that we need here. We need nutrients like the glucose, they have to come in here. So these molecules will pass. But there is how the passing here is restricted by every element, and there are some that are allowed to come in. So the ones that is going to help us in the movement of these particular molecules that we are talking about, the integral protein here, in between it is forming for us a channel. So this gap here that remains here is what we are calling, we can call it a pore. So a pore is like a channel through which molecules can pass through. So this particular channel here is our path, and we are calling it hydrophilic channel. Hydrophilic channel. Now, what's the meaning of this? We have talked about hydrophilic, water-loving. So water can easily be passing through this channel. So it is creating a pathway through which the molecule of water can pass through. If you look at this other hand, like cholesterol is a very, very rigid lipid. So it is like a barrier. It is going to stop the movement here. So in this end, movement cannot occur due to this particular existence of cholesterol. And we also have got another cholesterol molecule here. So in a membrane, there are barriers and there are also channels. So it is through the channels that the molecules will be passing through, and the barriers will be hindering that. So we know very well that molecules that are polar cannot pass through the cholesterol end here. There is a barrier here that will be stopping them. We have got the existence of the integral protein, that in between them there are spaces that exist, that is like a pore. And this particular pore is where the water molecule will be passing through, and then dissolved substances can also be passing through, so that it forms for us a hydrophilic channel through which the molecules will be passing through, so that it can either go inside the membrane, that is in the cell, or they can move outside the cell. And that is how this particular, the fluid mosaic model will be acting on the membrane. So I hope you can clearly see every bit of it from the diagram, and that is the meaning that I wanted you to get from this one. Thank you very much.